And as we watched those comments from Trump and Vance and their allies in Congress over the weekend, it was clear that they were laying the groundwork to openly defy court orders. And today, a judge said they already have. Today, a federal judge ruled that the Trump administration has been violating a previous court order to lift the blanket spending freeze on federal grant programs. To put it plainly, the Trump administration froze spending. A judge told them to unfreeze it. And according to this judge, they didn't. And that kind of puts us in uncharted territory. In fact, some Democrats and legal experts say it leaves us smack dab in the middle of what they're calling a constitutional crisis. And look, I know phrases like that can sometimes sound vague and abstract and academic. But as I said, this country relies on a system of checks and balances between three co-equal branches of government for good reason. So when the Trump administration ignores that principle, when it defies the judiciary and dares the courts to enforce their orders, it is threatening the Constitution itself, hence a constitutional crisis. Starting us off tonight is retired federal judge Nancy Gertner. After retiring from the federal bench, she became a professor at Harvard Law School. Judge Gertner, thank you so much for taking the time. You're the perfect person to help us make sense of what is happening here. So let me just start with what we saw today, because for the first time, we saw a federal judge accuse the Trump administration of defying a court order. And the judge said the White House has not complied with an order to release federal funding that it had frozen. I just want to pause on that because it feels to me, I'm not a lawyer, I'm certainly not a judge, feels very significant to me. But you were a federal judge. What do you think?
I think it is significant, but your introduction was suggesting that there's something very, academic about it, and it's really very, very straightforward here. Trump had a lawful way to do all of this. Yeah, he had a lawful way to do all of this. He has the Congress. There are steps that one can follow. There are rules to be followed, and all he did is completely ignore that and ignored his own Congress, which is really something that should give all of us pause, and issued these executive orders, which Dahlia Lithwick describes as like letters to Santa. They were badly drafted, and half the time, he didn't have the authority to do it. When a federal judge issues an order, the federal judge is making a determination for a preliminary order that there's a likelihood of success on the merits, so it has to be a strong case. Judges don't do this out of the air. And furthermore, that there has to be irreparable harm. And the notion that judges across the country have done this really should give this government pause, that they have done what they've done is not just mildly illegal, but very, very illegal. And judges have recognized that. To your point about this comment about, how federal judges have no business dealing with legitimate executive actions, as you said, legitimate is the point here. What they are doing isn't even close to legitimate.
Yeah,
will they defy it?
That's the question. I mean, first of all, it is literally their job. Let me ask you this question, because on the defy it, because this judge began this order by citing a Supreme Court case that says people who defy orders like this risk being held in criminal contempt. And we went through kind of a version of this last year. What does that look like, and what can it look like for a sitting president and a sitting administration?
Well, I mean, it could look like a range of things. It could look like fines. It's a little hard to imagine that Elon Musk will be deterred by a fine, but it could be fines. You could be, civil contempt would be, you could be jailed until you have remedied the situation. But no one ever gets to that. And as I said, particularly here where the illegality is really clear, there is no question about it. If they don't like these rulings,